Okay, so to start out, you can pick any of the Mixamo characters, or even consider perhaps going to the Unity Asset Store, find some of the characters over there, or some of the assets. There are Mixamo characters on the Unity Asset Store as well that you can grab from there. A lot of the animation packs are still free. Don't know how long that's going to be the case. It's owned by Adobe. So then you just pick a character that you can download and use. You want to set FBX to FBX for Unity, and for your main character you want the T-pose to be in place, because this is how we're going to tell Mechanim how to interpret your character so that it can create a solid avatar, and then that avatar can be used for other animations that you bring in using the same character. So we'll download this. So that's the character, and then if you're looking for animations, you can sort of cherry pick the animations and just download the ones that you want, but there should be some locomotion ones. Again, just try and find the ones that will work for your character. So let's say this basic magic locomotion pack, and I'm not too concerned with changing anything on here, although you do have a couple of options on some of the animation clips. You could, well, I know on more specific ones, if you do them one by one, you can change the arm space of the character. So if your character had a lot of armor on or something like that, you could make sure that there aren't any intersection. You can mirror things in Unity as well, so this isn't really useful, and you can actually override the arm space by just blending in a sort of a T-pose arm mask if you want to. So it's not really essential to tweak any of these animations. If you're happy, you can just go ahead and download. And again, FBX for Unity, 30 frames per second is totally okay. I don't think all the animations on here are at 60 frames per second anyway, so that's probably just the safest one to go for. And you don't need the T-pose. You actually don't even need the character, but it's useful to have the character if you just want to see if the animations work. So I'm going to opt for that for now. And you don't need keyframe reduction at this stage either, so just download. Okay, you need to be signed into your Adobe account to be able to download. Okay, so then in Unity, I've created a couple of things here, so I'm just going to quickly start from scratch again. Okay, so this is a starting scene. Then we can import our FBX, the YBot that we downloaded. There's another one down here. There's the same thing. Okay, so on this YBot, we want to set the import settings. I think under model, it should be fine. Scale factor 1. You don't really need blend shapes or anything like that at this point, but I think you can, in most cases, just ignore this from Mixamo for now. It's the rig that we're really concerned with. Now, the thing is, it will actually work with generic animation, because if you use the exact same model, it doesn't need the humanoid sort of in-between avatar to translate from one animation system to the next. It's exactly the same rig, it'll see the animation. If it's a different rig, it won't be able to play the animation at all. So that's why if we tag it as humanoid, we can use other humanoid animations from other rigs. And that's essentially what we want to do here. So humanoid, create from this model, and apply. Okay, it gives you the option to configure it then, but I think by default, Mixamo would be just fine. If it wasn't a T-stance, it should pick it up. It's complaining about like that one finger in the thumb, and if it really bugs you, you can go pose, enforce T-stance, and then it takes it to its T-stance, which now looks just fine. If you brought in a custom rig, you just need to make sure that all the rigs, you can grab them from here and then just drag the bone into the corresponding space. That's how you'll set it up. It'll be red if something's out of place. So if I put a foot under the shoulder, it's going to complain about it because it doesn't understand the hierarchy. There are some additional details to the mapping. You can include eye bones and jaw bones, but most of the animation that you download from Mixamo won't actually include this animation. It's just to set it up so you can use it from different characters. Sometimes you have characters with less finger bones or none at all. And you can actually get away with less hand bones. Then if your character is a specific shape that doesn't necessarily work with basic human animation, like that character that I showed you earlier on was a little bit fatter, his feet were really big, and he had a huge head. So then you're restricted by the amount of ankle movement or the amount of shoulder movement, and the head can't bob around too much because it just looks weird if the the size of the head doesn't match the speed of the movement. So you can go into your muscle settings over here if you want to tweak that, and that's just to basically restrain your main rig from over animating. Okay, you can test whether it's working like that, and you can slide these sliders to check if the movement is natural. Like over here, the legs are overlapping quite a bit. So if you wanted to avoid something like that, you could say, you know what, the left leg, where is it now? In and out twist. Yeah, I don't want it to twist in all that much. I don't want it to be able to overlap like that. Maybe I've got like some sort of cloth or something hanging in the middle here, and it's just going to cause problems down the line. So I want to restrict that. Then you can open it up. And you can say, oh, you know what, that's the limit for the, for the inside thigh movement. So now it can only go up to that point. Okay, and you probably want to do that in symmetry. So they'll go to the right leg, down here, right leg in, out. And also you can just type it in there to say, 0 on that, test it. So now your legs can't cross anymore, and if you do the in-out, you can see that you've now restricted the movement of this particular avatar. Okay? So if you're happy with that, the only other thing, there's additional arm twisting and there's additional arm stretching. That just sort of sets up the starting pose for your character. I found that in some cases, like the one character that I had, his feet were too close together on my normal character, so I had to move its feet apart as a start-off pose, and you can just do that, and you don't really see the effect of it, but you will once you start playing the animation. It just means that all the animations kind of have this overriding stance or overriding pose that just allows all the animations. It's kind of like that arm width that you had in Mixamo. Okay, translation, DOF, I don't know what DOF stands for, dynamic something of, I don't know, I have no idea. But what it means is, like the translation means movement, right? So normally your entire rig only brings in the rotation data. So by default, you'll only have FK working, and all the animation only has rotation data. So it'll work fine in place, but if you wanted something that needs to move, like let's say you've scaled bones or you've moved bones around, and that's part of the animation, like for instance, let's say a bow and arrow, if you pull that bow back and the string needs to move with the movement of the bone, you need translation to be activated because there's no rotation on pulling that string back unless you did two bones that bend inwards instead of one pulling back. But okay, anyway, that's just an example. Making my examples complicated. If you want bones to move, you need to tick that on. And it makes your animations a little bit more expensive, so don't have it ticked on if you don't need it. Okay, and then you can hit apply. And what you should have then, if you're done, is just a character that now has an avatar that's set up, and you can use this as your main character. Or you actually don't even need to use this as your main character, because if all your animations are from the same source, the Y-bot, then the rigs are exactly the same, and they can all share this animator. The only time that you need a different avatar is if you have a different rig. So let's say all your animations are from the Y-bot, but your character itself is a different character with a different rig. Then you just need to create an avatar for that character as well. Okay. But because all our animations are exactly the same, so I'm just going to unpack this, unzip, extract all. Okay, so I've just got all these animations now. I'm going to drag them into, actually, I'm going to create a new folder because this can get quite messy. I'm going to call it animation. And then put all my animations in there. Okay, so again, by default, they're all tagged as generic. So let me just show you real quick what happens if you put generic animations onto a character. So nothing will happen now anyway because it doesn't have a controller, so nothing's telling it to animate even though there's an animator. Sometimes you might find that this animator component's even missing, right? And then you just need to go component animator and then add the animator, okay? Then you can find the avatar that you created, and the controller you just need to create from scratch. So you can go create animation controller, and this is my character control, or main player controller, whatever. Back in the scene, you want to add this character controller as the controller for the animator, and then at this stage you probably want to see what the animator is actually doing. So there's nothing in there at the moment, so nothing's happening. If I press play, then nothing will play. If I go to my project, let's just do this. Yeah. So if I go to my project, my animations, and I take one of these animations, and I drag the animation in here. Notice a couple of things. Firstly, it's not named appropriately. The object is named, but the animations aren't. You may want to do something about that before you import everything into your blend tree. Otherwise, everything's just going to say mixmo.com. It's kind of annoying. And because this animation is not tagged properly, if we play now, it's just going to crawl into a little bundle. Okay? And that's quite common. People see this and they don't quite know what's happening. And it's because We haven't told this file that it needs to be humanoid animation. Okay. Now, you can go and create an avatar for every single model, but what it does, so if I can use this idle stance quickly as an example, it's really struggling to see the T-stance here. So when I enforce T-stance, it thinks that that is the T-pose. So you can see how all your animations are going to be a little bit offset. They're not going to be quite right. And it's because it doesn't understand the T-pose from that pose that you've just tried to analyze. Okay, it's too far removed from an actual T-pose. So to create an avatar from that is going to give you inaccurate animation. Okay, so don't actually do this. Let's just revert and say that we're done. So instead, we're going to say copy from another avatar. And then we're going to use the T-stance one that we know is accurate and works much better. And we're just going to apply that. So now, if I bring my character back into the scene, and this is still the animator that's on there, just put it back. Press play now. The animation works perfectly. Okay, now it's not going to loop, and I don't really care for it looping at this stage. All I want you to do is make sure that all the animation clips are set up properly. So they're all using the humanoid animation, that they all use the same avatar. And then when you bring them in, you can just string them up with exit, what is it? What's the transition called? On exit time.
Yeah, it should be at the top.
Okay. Yeah, so basically what you need to do is go here, copy animation, and then just make sure that the animation clips are named appropriately. Apply. It's a bit of a schlep. I don't know why they did that. Here, okay, you can do them all at the same time. You can't paste all the names at the same time, but you can set them up at the same time. So select them all, go to Rig, Humanoid, copy from avatar, and pick the YBot avatar or your main model's avatar, and then apply. So now they should already all work, even if they're not named appropriately. I'm not going to go through the process of renaming them right now, but please do. It's going to make your life much easier down the line when you're looking for animations. Right, so you can just pull them all in there, and then just make transition. So by default, the transition will be set to has exit time, and it'll just blend in. So we're going to get into the details of when to blend, when we want things to loop, how we want these transitions to happen. But for now, this is all I want to see. You can also see why renaming them would be important to me, because I want you to make a screen grab of this and hand it in. And it doesn't make any sense to have 50 Mixamo.com animation clips. I wouldn't be able to read anything from that. Okay, so please do rename them, and then just string them all up, and then when you hit play, it should just go from the one animation into the next animation, into the next animation. Okay, so one other thing, you can loop it all around if you want to, just by selecting your last one and then making the transition back to the first one again, so that way they'll loop. But on top of that, also go back to your animator and then switch off root motion so I don't have to constantly follow this character around. I just want to see what's happening in the animation itself. Okay, so now it's just moving in place. So next week, when you bring in your character and you have all your animations, all your locomotion animations in place, and everything's set up, what we can do is just simply write a little bit of code or set up a bolt tree to drive the animator, and then we'll put the animations into the right quadrants for the right parameters so that it's driven. You guys have any questions at this stage?